Hey, welcome everyone to the From the Shadows podcast. I'm your host, Shane Grove, and with me as always is Jason, the super producer.
Greetings, everyone.
And sitting across from me is a man who, can we even allude to your experience last night?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Very terrifying experience.
Okay, someone who had another very terrifying experience, the artist formerly known as...
I'm going as the barrister.
Going as the barrister. So the barrister's in the house. And before we bring our guest on today, we want to welcome another new Patreon member, Amy, who is from Ohio. And I'm going to totally embarrass her now. But when she reached out to me, she admitted she has a huge crush on the Ozark Howler. Ooh. And she alluded to the fact that despite that she's married, that she would probably give him a kiss on the cheek. Ooh. So everybody is out there, you got to step up your game if you're going to beat Amy, because I think she's first in line to give a howler a big kiss. What do you think?
Wow.
Congratulations, Amy.
Congratulations. Our condolences. But thank you. But Amy, thanks for becoming a Patreon. And anybody else out there that wonders what goes on the Patreon page, go check it out. It's From the Shadows podcast on Patreon, and there's all kinds of, should we say, unedited material?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. There's a lot of good stories. There's always an Ozark Howler episode that's not ready for prime time. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So go check it out. Listener stories. So go check it out. Mm-hmm. And if you're listening to us, whatever podcatcher you're listening to us, if you're listening to us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, make sure you like us, leave us a good comment. Be more than welcome to take a lot of praise.
And don't hesitate to share the episode, because that helps bring us up in the algorithm.
Yeah. And if you have a story and you're listening to us, Judge, what's the email? From the
Shadows podcast at yahoo.com.
Is it Yahoo or Gmail?
It's Yahoo.
Are you sure?
Look, I'm telling you.
Hey, go to our website, From the Shadows podcast, and just contact us. Or you can contact us.
Golly, you're right. It is Gmail.
It is Gmail. This isn't 1997. We're not using Yahoo.
And trust me, I have it on my phone. I'm always looking for interesting questions. Somebody send in a question for me. Want to know about some of my experiences or anybody else's. I love to hear from various listeners from different things, and we like to talk to people.
And in fact, our guest today got a hold of me through our From the Shadows podcast Instagram page. Sent us a message. So, I got this message and I'm reading it, and it's, this guy telling me he's got all these experiences, and he's a professional, and he's just ready to kind of tell his experiences, for lack of a better way to describe it. So we'll introduce Brian from West Virginia right now. Brian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much. This is so cool. I feel like I'm on the radio.
You'll get over it. You
will be in a few days.
So Brian, why don't you tell our listeners, where exactly? Well, as close as you want to tell them where you're from, and why it is you felt compelled to reach out to us, and then let's get into some of these cool stories that I've already heard, but the judge and Jason, or I'm sorry, the barrister and Jason have not heard.
Well, my gosh, it's just been a very paranormal life that I've had. I grew up near Charleston, the capital. You guys drive through it every time you go to the beach.
The Golden Dome.
Yeah. That's like the most expensive and valuable thing we keep in West Virginia.
Other than Bo Kennedy of the Bump podcast, I just have to mention it's a prerequisite. If we do something in West Virginia, I got to mention Bo Kennedy. He's the second. He's the second most valuable thing in West Virginia.
I feel guilty. I do. I feel guilty that I called you first and didn't talk to Bo. So, Bo, if you ever hear this, I apologize.
He'll hear it and he'll send me a text and be like, "How are you beating me to my own backyard?" So maybe just luck.
Now I feel like chopped liver.
You feel like
I feel like the guy who like had to ask a girl to the prom because the girl he wanted to go to he knew would say no, so he went with as John Cusack would say from the movie, the sure thing.
So we're the sure thing.
We're the sure thing.
Okay, all right. I guess I don't know how that translates into the world of podcasting that we're the sure thing, but okay.
Well, we'll let anybody on here. Right?
We'll go. Oh, jeez. So go ahead, Brian. Excuse us for the detour.
Hey, no problems. But West Virginia, as you know, is very rural. You drive through a highway, you drive through a town, but we're just, 75, 80% trees. It's woods and it's mostly vertical. So there are plenty of places here to hide. And even though I grew up near Charleston, I could be in Charleston in a half hour, but I grew up up a holler.
So he's way on the sticks.
Yeah, right across the hill from Boone County, which Bo would know because it's not far from him. So I grew up outdoors. I grew up always looking up at the sky. I'm just very curious my whole life, and I grew up experiencing things that other people would find strange, but this is normal to me. Like I think I mentioned to you the other day, my mom, how she would have these little precognitive moments where she would know someone in the family had died before anybody knew. And I would get those too later on when I got a little older. But not nothing creepy, nothing scary. We weren't seeing dead people or talking to dead people, at least not yet. I did hear my grandmother after she died. I always think she kind of came back just to say goodbye. But I was about 5 or 6. But other than that, I didn't have a lot of paranormal stuff going on for a while, unless you count UFOs.
We'll count those in this circumstance.
Yeah, that'll qualify for now.
Yeah. Okay. As a kid, I saw quite a few. The first I remember ever seeing, I liked to have my bed right up against the window so I could look out at night and look at the stars and see the sky. And I had a place where I could do that. Now, we only got sun from 10 to 2 up there, but we did have a little sky. And we don't have hollows. For anyone listening, in West Virginia, it is not a hollow. It's a holler, just like when you holler at somebody. Otherwise, you're a foreigner.
Well, can you at least tell our listeners what a holler is?
For those all over the world,
people all over the world who would not be familiar with this type of vernacular.
Oh, well, that's true. It's a gap between mountain ridges. Usually there's a stream running through it, not always. And they vary in size. And in West Virginia, that's where people tend to settle because there's just a little bit of flat land there. Otherwise, you've got to carve out your flat spot in order to build your house or drag your trailer up a mountain or whatever you're going to do. And I pretty much grew up over a coal mine.
Oh, boy.
There were coal mines riddled all through that area where I grew up. You could go just a few hundred yards up the hill and run into actual working coal mines from where I lived. When they would set off charges, like when they were strip mining and we were going to blow off a huge piece of mountain, it would shake everything. So, that's how I grew up, around the coal mines, coal dust, coal miners. And looking up, like I said. And so I'd lay there in my bed at night and look at the stars till I fell asleep. But one night I looked out and there was a boomerang sort of thing up in the sky. And it had white lights along the wings. I remember telling myself, oh, it's a fighter plane. But I think back on that, and fighter planes have to move. They don't hover. and this thing was hovering, and it just sort of glided away and did this funny turn and went off and disappeared. And after that, I really started paying attention, looking up even more. So I saw things like, one time there was this collection of colored lights, and they didn't seem to have a shape or a form, and there didn't seem to be any pattern, but they were close together, and they were moving across the sky, and they sort of followed the mountain ridge, came back across the sky, and I'm watching it this whole time trying to figure out if there's a shape to it or if there's a pattern. And then it just, it broke apart. A few of the lights went one direction and the other lights just sort of shot off.
Wow.
Kind of like the scene in Close Encounters of the Third Kind where they just...
Well, I'm just thinking like it was like maybe this conglomeration here, and then the ship just broke off into little ships and just took off.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it was at that point you knew it wasn't something man-made.
Right.
Definitely.
You know it wasn't from this earth.
So Brian,
right, yeah.
So for people, and we got listeners from all over the world, but some people, live in major metropolitan areas. Describe what the sky is like when you're out in a place, because I've been there in West Virginia. When we talk about light noise and light pollution and things like that, describe what the sky looks like on a clear night, because it would blow people if you've never been out into these areas.
Oh yeah,
it would just totally. It's a stargazer's dream.
It's like being out in the desert at night. Yeah.
So.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The only thing comparable is out in the desert because you don't have people around.
Yeah, I used to live in the high desert. That was one of my favorite things, is to head out there at night times and sit in the back of the pickup truck. Yeah. Yeah.
So you weren't abducted when you went out there, huh?
No. I had a lot of coyotes that would get curious and come close to the bed of the truck, but that was it.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability to see things that maybe you wouldn't see if you were in a major city, you can see it. I mean, it's amazing.
It's unreal.
Yeah, so maybe you're seeing things that other people could have seen, but they're living in densely populated areas. Like, you look at the map of the world at night, and you see all the lights, and then you look over places like West Virginia and stuff like that, and it's dark in areas.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. There are lights along the interstate highways, but for the rest of it, and the time I'm talking about was back in the 1980s, and a lot of people didn't even have dusk to dawn lights.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I mean, dark, and you could see the sky, and you could see the Milky Way.
Yes.
Yeah, I can remember laying out on the hood of that 79 Dodge my dad had, and just staring up at the sky.
More stars than you can possibly count in a lifetime.
Oh yeah, it's unbeatable.
So after that experience, what other experiences did you have?
I think the only one of note at that time was there were people in Charleston. There was a buzz about people seeing something in the sky that they couldn't explain, and so that came from the city, so it had to be pretty low. My mom's friend called her and was telling her about it and asking, she said it was going up the river. Could we see it? So we walked outside and looked to see if we could. And sure enough, kind of distant, we could see a ball of light that seemed to be changing colors. And we stood there and looked at it for a while. And this is the strange thing that happened. You guys know what an A-10 warthog is?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So a squadron of those things comes flying in low, circles, and goes right back out toward that.
So they knew. So the crazy thing is that back then people were able to get on the phone and call you and say, "Hey, something's coming your way. Go outside and look." That's crazy.
Yeah. It was pretty weird, and I don't know where those planes even came from. They had to come from some distance, because at that point, the West Virginia Air National Guard was just C-130s.
So maybe
I don't know how long they had tracked it.
Yeah, maybe they had been chasing it. Yeah.
Yeah, they had to. Yeah.
Now, did you ever see was there any reports in the newspaper or on the news about that, considering there was such a large, so many people saw it?
The news, if they get enough calls, they will make a mention. People are seeing something. We don't know what it is. Please stop calling.
Oh, my goodness. That's typical.
Yeah. That's about all you get. But that, and it was the 1980s. It was a different time, different world. Shucks. It was probably those dang Russians, Later on, things got more interesting in the 90s, though.
Well, the music sucked, but what happened then as you got older?
Wait a minute, I'm pulling a musical dagger right out of my heart.
There's nothing better than 70s music.
Well, maybe not. Actually, I love the 70s, 80s, and 90s. But anyway, so in the 90s, I was in college, and I had this little red Chevette. You guys remember Chevettes?
Yeah, our buddy had a red Chevette, and I drove in college a 1979 gold Chevette.
Oh, yeah.
It was gold. We called it cold gold. Because the heater didn't.
Listen, that's our bad car stories from high school and college. That could be like a whole separate episode.
So me and my two buddies drove that red Chevette from Ohio all the way down to Daytona for spring break. Yeah. And it died on the way back, and we had to scrap it. But it made it. It died. Just outside a little town called Upper Sandusky, but it almost made it back.
So God rest its soul. So any of our listeners that hear this, feel free to inundate our message box with your worst car stories, and maybe we'll do a compilation.
There's nobody has the worst car story than Grove.
Yes, I have the worst
of all time, but that's for the Patreon.
That's for the Patreon. So Brian, continue on with your Chevette.
Yeah. So anyway. I was with my wife. At the time, she was my girlfriend. We were on a late night run to get some food. We did that a lot in college. And we were on the way back, and all of a sudden, I see this thing, and I'm slamming on the brakes, pulling off the road, hovering above these houses and going across this area. I don't know what to call it. It was some sort of ship or satellite, or I don't know, but it glowed. It was an incandescent glow, but it wasn't bright. Like it was a whitish light bulb sort of thing, but it was a perfect sphere, it looked like. And it had these two bright red round spheres that were circling it slowly. They didn't appear to be attached to it. This was probably, 11 o'clock or something, 11:30 that night. And around here, they've already rolled up the sidewalks at that point, and everybody's in their house. And it was like March of 95. We had two incredible experiences that month in that year. Well, this was one of them. So this thing, I rolled down the window. It's making no sound. And all I can do is stare at it and try to figure out, what am I looking at? Well, I was fairly new to the area, and I didn't know my way around. I tried to follow it. That failed. Ran up a dead-end road. But at some point, the two red spheres stopped circling it horizontally. they went over it vertically once, and it was like it did that, and it changed directions and shot off, away from us. So, you don't tell people because they're going to think you're crazy. I always wanted to kind of go up in that area and ask people, did they see anything weird? But on the other hand, I was young and I didn't really know how to do that, or if I even wanted to try to start doing that.
But your girlfriend, now your wife, I mean, she saw it too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're not crazy because somebody else is witnessing it with you.
Well, I work in mental health.
Really bad mushrooms you two picked up.
Okay.
I knew there was something because they were red. Yeah, well, I work in mental health, so I'm never sure I'm not crazy. But
well, the interesting thing, and I want to ask your opinion on this. So we've had this discussion about UFOs, and just because something is an unidentified flying object in and of itself doesn't mean that it's an alien spacecraft from another world.
Right.
It's just unidentified. It could be, top secret, military, equipment they're working on. So yeah. What are your thoughts on what you saw? Do you think this is something from another, otherworldly ship, or do you think this could be something?
And why do you think at this point in your life, you've seen something 4 different times, and I mean, you've sent me pictures, so I know this isn't like it doesn't stop at 4 different times.
Right.
Why do you think it's just West Virginia, or do you think it's you? Because are they trying to make contact with you, or you just happen to be more observant?
I am observant. I think that we're part of this weird circus that we don't understand. I think West Virginia is a perfect place for something like this. If you wanted to study humans, rural West Virginia is a great place to go get them, because nobody's going to notice and nobody's going to believe them. So,
okay,
dumb hillbilly, dumb hillbilly with advanced degrees and lots of education. But anyway,
I think the remoteness of the state lends itself to, and this is something it was just watching, like Alaska has the most UFO sightings of anywhere in the United States. Alaska, because it's so vast. It's a lot like West Virginia, just way bigger.
Big, yeah.
Well, and I've also said this is West Virginia. It is, like you said, you lived in a holler inside a holler. Okay.
Yeah.
If something that was from prehistoric times was still going to survive, like a pterodactyl or a thunder, whatever, a flying creature. What better place to do it than West Virginia? And especially the coal mines. How many of the coal mines are abandoned? And if it's starting to come out that, we think maybe the UFOs many of them are from here, underwater or from a cave system. And that's where West Virginia's riddled with that.
Absolutely.
Well, there's also, I mean, the other thing is about West Virginia, because it's so mountainous, and what have we learned about weird stuff like with David Pilates and Missing 411, the certain types of rocks,
the granite,
certain types of rocks, and it's mountainous. And you got magnetism and different things like that would make it. Look, UFOs aren't going to hide out in New York City.
No. They're going to go where the best moonshine is, probably. So what was the other great experience you had in that same month? And these are all in West Virginia. Like, you guys are going to college in West Virginia then,
right?
Too. Okay,
right.
So what was the next incident?
Well, the question about whether it's man-made, that pops up with this one, because although the other one, I don't know how we could have at the time done anything like that. We could have stolen it, but I don't think we could have made it. But this next one, the wife and I, girlfriend at the time, saw was a giant black triangle. and it was hovering so low over the town that the town lights were sort of reflecting off of the surface. And it wasn't the Death Star. It wasn't, a Star Wars-y thing. It was smooth, but it looked like it had seams. It's almost like the black surface was tile of a sort. Mm-hmm. There were 3 orangish colored lights, one at each corner. And I'm telling you, this thing was enormous. It could have been an aircraft carrier. It was so big.
The interesting thing is I was watching, it's been a few years now, somebody was doing an account of a UFO sighting, and they described the exact same thing you're describing.
I've heard a couple of encounters talking about just that kind of craft. What I was going to ask you, Brian, was was it completely silent, or did it make any kind of a noise?
No sound. I didn't feel anything. Nothing. It was completely silent. It was barely moving at all for a while, and then it just sort of floated off into the distance. The surface of it reminded me at the time of the black heat tiles that they used to put on the bottom of the space shuttle.
Okay. All right.
And that's why I thought, is that ours?
Mm-hmm.
If it is or was ours, we were way ahead of anywhere we thought we were in 95.
Wow.
Yeah. My friend Earl and I, one night we were together, and he actually says that, now this is something he remembers that I don't. He says that we saw that again. We were together, and he remembers seeing it and saying to me, I think it's going to land on top of us. And then he says he remembers it flying off and doesn't remember, or I don't remember that at all. I don't remember that happening. He said afterwards, I drove around like a crazy man for a while, and then things seemed to go back to normal.
Wow. Like you weren't like you totally weren't yourself? Like you weren't?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no idea what happened. Both those times I was not aware. The second time I was not aware at all. The time before that, I had no idea what time it was. I remember the wife and I, we got back into the car, and I was like, did we lose time? And neither of us knew what time it was. Actually, we'd been arguing.
Wow. See, now there is a practical use for UFOs. Anytime anytime a couple's fighting, have a UFO should show up.
Yeah. Well, it certainly does leave you speechless.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess one of the questions I have then about the way you describe it, what type of propulsion system, now I'm not an engineer or anything like that, but what type of propulsion system allows a vehicle to basically hover, especially something that massive?
Silently.
I mean helicopters, right. And I was watching Joe Rogan had Neil Tyson deGrasse on, and they were asking about, are we going to have flying cars? And deGrasse says, we're never going to have flying cars. And Rogan's like, well, why is that? He says, you understand the engineering, the math behind a helicopter. The something about the lift has to equal, and it's all this crazy math, but that's why the helicopters are so loud, and they have to have these propellers, and they blow stuff everywhere they go.
You can't even get a jetpack. What are you talking
it's
about?
like, this is listen, you cannot, we do not have the ability in the now or in the foreseeable future to create a car that could just hover. It could just drive. It could fly. It just can't happen. So now you go back and you look at something as large as what you're describing, and the fact it's hovering.
It's mind. Right. It's mind blowing.
Well, and that leads to a question. And so one of the things we've always talked about on here is one of the biggest arguments for the fact that there's aliens are not visiting the planet Earth is the sheer distance between us and any of the near solar systems. I mean, if like, what is it? The Voyager that just passed Pluto and stuff. You know, that they put the biggest, strongest rocket that had ever been created on Voyager, and it's traveling at so many thousand miles per hour. And for it to get to the nearest solar system, us, it's going to take 4,000 years. Or no, it's 40,000 years. 40,000 years. The best technology we had, rocket, okay, unmanned, traveling at the velocity that it's traveling, will take 40,000 years to get to Alpha Centauri. So you think to yourself, okay, all right, there's no alien to get across the Milky Way galaxy is so unbelievably big. So something to visit us, they have to have figured out some sort of way to bend space-time. And if they figure that out, then they've mastered the ability to deal with gravity.
Absolutely.
And that would explain why they would have technology that could hover, especially a craft that big.
It's definitely a different propulsion system. It's nothing that our understanding of physics would be able to equate to.
Well, we actually know. We actually know how to do it. We know how to bend space-time. It's just impossible for us to actually engineer it.
Yeah, mathematically
it can be done.
Yes, yeah. But we don't have the technology to implicate that or the energy to be able to do it.
Right, that's the problem. The amount of energy that would be required for us to create a wormhole, which we can do, mathematically we can do it, the amount of energy that we would take does not exist.
Yeah.
I know a physicist who has a theory.
Do tell.
But he postulates... Okay, he postulates that Einstein didn't know everything and that there are other photons with different kinds of force fields working within the realm of light, things that we haven't understood or haven't seen. And recently, if you have seen any of the science journals, physicists have been talking about a discovery of a new reaction of some particles, which is basically what Charles had been talking about. You guys probably should try to get in touch with Charles because he has much cooler stories to tell than me, because you're either going to decide I'm crazy or he's crazy when I say this. But I spent a lot of time studying him, researching. I really believe that while he was with the Air Force, he worked with aliens. He's not a Bob Lazar kind of guy. It's a different situation. His name's Charles James Hall. There's a documentary about his life on Amazon right now called Walking with the Tall Whites.
Okay.
Give that a look. I've read all his books. Charles, if you ever hear this, I'm so sorry. He's not the greatest writer in the world, but his stories are incredible.
You say he's a physicist, or is that a different guy?
He's a physicist.
Okay.
As a young man in the 60s, he joined the Air Force to go to college. They gave him some tests, found out he was a smart guy and a math whiz. They assigned him, they assigned him to Nellis Air Base because they had a project they wanted to try out. And they didn't tell him what it was. They sent him out as a weather observer on the bomb ranges. Jason, you know where Indian Springs is by any chance?
I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you where it's at on the map. What state is this?
It's Nevada. It's just up from Las Vegas.
Okay, so it's on 95. If so I probably passed it.
Indian Springs is a speck, and there's a little Air Force base there now. They call it Creech, and that's where he spent a lot of his time. He was stationed there at Nellis. And up in those valleys, up near where Area 51 is, he talks about the fact that there was an alien base there, and the Air Force started working with them and developing a program to try to get technology as far back as the 60s.
Now, that's stuff that the locals used to say when I would stop at a truck stop that was over there near the turnoff to go to Pahrump, Nevada. There was this little truck stop that was over there on the left, about a few miles, I'd say about 5 miles back from that turnoff. And I would go in there, and I would always talk to those people because there was some old timers in there, and they would tell me about the activity that used to come off of some of them underground labs they had over there. Because what you see when you're looking out to the fence is not Area 51. That's the cool stuff is underground.
Yeah.
And they would talk about what used to fly out overhead, and yeah, there's something to that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Charles describes it at great length. People think what they're going to think. Some people can't deal with it. Some people are open to it. I get it because I was raised in the empirical method. I'm a concrete, rational kind of guy. But I've experienced so much that's beyond, my ability to explain. Mm-hmm. Like the giant triangle that makes no sound, can hover or go really fast.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, bro. What's their end game? Yeah. I mean, what's their end game? I mean, if these are people, or this is a species from another world, what's their end game? Because some people theorize, and I kind of sometimes am one of them. I'm not convinced that it is alien life. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think it's us. We have 10,000, 20,000 years ago, we've mastered time travel. And that's why we come back, they observe, but they don't just come out and say, hey, we're another. I mean, I'm a history major. So history of human beings and species, and I'm not just about human beings, we're talking about primates, we're talking about insects. Right. I don't care what genome you're in. Genus, I should say, no, genus you're in. Any species that is more powerful, stronger, and knows it is, always takes over lesser, inferior areas and happens. Mm-hmm. It just always happens. And if there is this race or species that have mastered space travel, why they have not just taken us over, why they haven't, I don't know. So that's why it lends to some theories is that, look, what we're really seeing is us. It's just time travel. They're coming back, studying, doing whatever it is, whatever reason they're doing. And that's why they just almost never make contact.
And that's possible.
And like the alien abduction stories, they talk about alien abduction stories. They talk about the people, they see the big light and they're on a table and they're being probed.
Right.
Wouldn't it make sense that if future selves came back, they would pick people up, they would study, and maybe they're trying to solve, there's a virus in the future, and maybe they're going back to say, listen, the secret to solving this virus is in our ancestors' DNA, blah, blah, blah. Because we never hear any stories about the aliens killing these people. They take them, they do something, they just let them go. I mean, does that sound like the actions of somebody's trying to take you over? I don't know.
It doesn't. And that lends credibility to the thesis. The thing is that, we can only look at any situation through our own, social and cultural lens. So we're judging them on our own morals and values. Mm-hmm. But what really drives them, is a mystery. Are they, what are they? Who are they? Where are they from? When are they from? Are we talking other planets? Are we talking other realities, interdimensional? So many things. I mean, I've seen things at the foot of my bed. Heck, one night, and this is the only time this has ever happened in my life, I heard this horrible sound. You know that alarm clock sound, that buzz sound that alarm clocks all used to make?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I heard that sound. Oh my gosh. It was relentless, and it was in my ear, and it woke me up, and I was trying to find it and stop it when I realized I didn't have an alarm clock.
Oh my goodness.
That's always
it was buzzing in my ear, and I was like, what am I, having an aneurysm? What is this? And I look up, and on the wall, I see letters, pictographs, something between runes and letters. I don't know, how to describe it. They were pink and they were in gray boxes on the wall in front of me. The wall wasn't the wall. I was seeing this weird writing. And I looked at that, and I looked down the hall, and I saw a being, not very tall, couldn't have been any more than 5 feet tall, but I wear glasses, and I could not make out features, okay? I didn't have my glasses. I saw the being, and it kind of beckoned me to come, and I was like, nope, nope, nope. And I just kind of ducked under the covers and said, we're done now. And, that was it. I don't think anything else happened. I went back to sleep. Now, did something happen? Was it a memory? Was it a dream, a hypnagogic hallucination? I've never known anybody to have that alarm clock sound in a hallucination, but I don't know.
Could you thinking back, could you make any sense of the pictures and stuff you were seeing on where the wall was?
It wasn't like any kind of writing I've ever seen. So, I really don't know. I tried to record or write down what I could remember, but I can't find them anywhere. I don't know what it was.
Wow. Jeez. Well, lucky you. That
yeah.
I mean, do you believe that this has, like, that is more than just seeing lights in the sky? That's some sort of either, like you said, repressed memory coming back, or an actual event that you remember at the time. So it's progressively like escalated your experience with aliens or whatever it is we want to call this.
I do have a memory of floating backward in light. I don't have a memory of an abduction per se. I do remember how it felt floating. It was just a sense of, I don't know, just joy, bliss. It felt great.
So it didn't feel like you were just moving. It actually gave you a, euphoric sensation? Right? Yes. Just warm, euphoric. It was like, I want to keep doing this kind of a feeling.
We already mentioned the moonshine in West Virginia.
The moonshine. West Virginia.
Wow. So beyond the topic then of your experiences with the aliens, do you think then this leads into the other topics you're going to tell us about?
Are they related to Bigfoot?
Are they related to Bigfoot? No, I didn't say that, but you did. But
Here we go.
Here we go. Because the more that you're, because you and I had talked on the phone, and more of our stuff was about the Bigfoot. So now that I'm hearing the whole scope of your experiences with extraterrestrials or UFO, like, how do you? So let's get into then when this other stuff started happening. And then maybe we can see if we can, I don't know, figure something out.
I look forward to hearing this. You know what school that I subscribe to? I feel that there is a supernatural aspect to Bigfoot as well as a physical aspect.
All right.
My experience with the big guy has been a little odd. And there is a relationship between those things and the lights in the woods. The events I just discussed and the appearance of the lights in the woods. I don't have lights in the woods behind the house on a regular basis, but periodically they do pop up. One night I even saw one floating over the tree line. At first I thought it was a helicopter, and then I had just gotten home. I got out of the truck and I realized it wasn't making any sound. So I, don't know what that was, but there was a night in particular. It was near spring or early spring, and there was a little snow on the ground. and the leaves were off, so it was easy to see behind the house down into the woods. There's a little spring back there and a game trail, and the spring runs down to a little pond, and there are some neighbors down there that I can't really see, but I know they're there. And so the big guy, he spends some time down there. But anyway, these lights, one night I saw them from the kitchen, and I said something, I'm going to go out and see. And my daughter, I guess this was 2 or 3 years ago, so she was 14. She said, I want to go too. So we went out, trudged out into the snow and started to stare at these things. And I started to send you a few pictures, but honestly, individual stills don't do it much justice. There were these lights hovering above the ground, and, there wasn't any reason for them to be there. They were just there. I did want to walk down there, and I was a little scared to walk down there at the same time. I tried to get pictures with the phone. I did do that. The pictures are interesting because the lights would kind of come on and go off. The colors would change. The intensity would change. Sometimes they would switch off and switch on a little bit in a slightly different position. The weirdest thing was they knew that we were there, and I was like flashing lights and trying to see if they would react, and nothing really happened. But like I said, there were neighbors down there beyond my sight, and there's a little road down there, and a car came down that road. And as the car got to the point where it would have been able to look up and see the lights all switched off until the car went by, and then they popped on again.
Wow. Oh, man.
So, my daughter and I are watching this, and in the pictures, it's kind of cool because it's almost like they change shape, like they will sort of break up and dissipate and then reform, almost like they're made of a bunch of little tiny lights. So I don't know what the heck that is. I really don't. Whether it's some kind of weird natural phenomena or brown mountain lights. It doesn't have to do with the geology, or does it have to do with Bigfoot? It was after that the first time I saw the Bigfoot back there was after the lights. Up until that time, every now and then in the fall, we'd be going to bed, and something would come up and slap the back of the house. And for a long time, I wrote it off as something paranormal because I was into ghost hunting. I thought, well, maybe somebody follows me home, or, whatever.
That doesn't make it right. I'm just pointing that out. That just because you're into ghosts doesn't mean something smacking the house is okay. But go on.
Well, we had the property is covered in fruit and nut trees and bushes. There were these walnut trees back there, and I had to have them cut down because they had grown to the point that they were starting to really, ruin the roof. All right. And so the very week that I had them cut down, this thing comes by and hits the house so hard that I was like, gee, what's coming through? I go out the next day, and there's a hole in the siding where it had smacked it. It broke the vinyl.
Wow.
I think it was mad that we cut down the walnut trees.
It probably was. It might have been eating those walnuts.
Yeah. But I've got other walnut trees, and I've got apple trees and cherry trees, and there are hickory nuts galore, so okay. There's plenty of food. And where I live, there are more cows and deer than there are people. So, they're not lacking in food, but I think he got ticked off because his trees were gone.
Well, people describe, Native Americans, just some tribes, not all, described them as basically spirit animals of the protectors of the forest, and there you are cutting down maybe some sort of
sacred
tree, and
Yeah.
you screwed up big time, man.
Yeah, some of that.
We're not trying to shame you.
Some of that folklore actually refers to them as stewards. They were stewards of the forest. Yeah.
So how do you report that claim on your insurance? For your sighting?
Yeah, forget that. But no, really, I thought, I guess I'm going to show my age. I thought Nolan Ryan had pitched a fastball, at the house. It was tremendous. I guess I have to explain somehow to Bigfoot that I have to be a steward of the roof, and he has to be a steward of the forest.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, let us know how that conversation goes. Let's see if he's open to it.
Yeah. Well, there is an element of mind speak of a sort, I think, that they can do.
Yeah, we've had guests to come on and tell us that. Yes, it's kind of creepy the way they describe it, but you can hear you can hear inside your head what they're saying. It's sort of like you can hear their thoughts or something. Perfect communication.
Do they speak in an accent, like a West Virginia accent?
Yes.
No, I'm
So,
serious.
but if you're going to live down here, you got to talk like we do. All
So
right?
does the Bigfoot talk like you? Does it have like a distinct English accent?
Pip pip.
Well, only the more refined big feet talk that way.
All right, mate.
I hope my English friends don't listen to this.
Yeah, I know that's bad. Even we got like over 5,000 listeners in the UK. We might not want to. Yeah, we might not want to go that route like that.
So we'll put you on the spot like we do every guest. But
So
Bigfoot, real animal, just like a primate, or supernatural?
Yes.
Yes.
So after it smacks, after it puts a hole in the house, then what?
Okay, the first time I really got any kind of look at him, wife and daughter were away. I was home alone. And let me add, I'm an outdoorsy kind of guy. I love to spend time outside. I love to be in the backyard. Even if I'm not doing anything, I'd rather be there or be in the woods. That's who I used to be anyway. I'm not a hunter. I don't like to kill things. I've never liked to kill things. Even when I went hunting with my dad and brother, I always figured I would end up feeding the deer rather than shooting the deer. But and I think somehow or other that gets across to Bigfoot. I think he knows I wouldn't hurt him. But I got to tell you, he is big. So this night that the wife and daughter are gone, I'm watching a movie, and from my seat, I've got all the lights off. There's one lamp on that's providing just enough light to block my view through the kitchen window. But I glanced over that way because you know how you do when you feel like you're being looked at, being watched, you kind of look. Well, I looked, and I saw something, and I looked back at the TV, and I realized that I'd just seen something, and I looked back. And when I looked back, I saw him turn his whole body. He just turned and walked away. So all I saw was a shape, okay? Because of the light, I couldn't make out any features, any details. Well, my heart was racing. I mean, thumping. I wanted to go outside, and I thought, you're alone, don't go outside. And I didn't. I said, who's going to call and get an ambulance to put you back together if this thing rips your arms off, beats you to death with them?
Yeah.
But when I went out the next day and I stood at that same window, I realized this thing was between 8 and 9 feet tall. And it was 2 of me wide, and I'm 6'2", you know. I'm not a little guy.
Right.
This thing was just enormous. And so that was the first physical sighting I had. The next was a glance in the woods. And I had gone into the house, but I forgot something, and I turned around to come right back out. And at that moment, it chose to jump across the one area where I could see it. Big black critter. And then the next time I got a much closer look at it, I was maybe 30 feet away at the most. I'd walked down to my bird feeders. I love to feed the birds because I have a physical condition that limits the things that I can do. I can't get out into the woods like I used to. So I feed the birds, and I do a lot of photography. I went down to fill those feeders, and I heard something over the hill. And there's an old barbed wire fence there that separates my property from that little hollow. And I saw this head sort of going by, and it had to know that I was there. I wasn't being quiet. And it was this big, blacker than black, hairy head. All I could really see was the top of it, okay? It had to be on all fours, hunkered down, doing a belly crawl by there, because the slope on the hill there is probably about 45 degrees. If it had stood up, I would have gotten a good look at it. So it crosses my path of vision, which is not really big. You know, when the leaves are on, you can't see very far at all. And then my dogs hear something down there. And ordinarily, the dogs will not go near one. If they know it's there, they will not go near it. But then the dogs ran down there, and I was terrified. This thing's going to kill my dogs. The dogs went down there and sniffed around and smelled and looked, and it was like it was gone. It was like it just vanished. The first time I ever saw the dogs react to it was on a dark morning. It was early. It was rainy. Family and I, we were on our way out. We walked out the door and heard this loud ruckus when we got outside. And it was behind the fence line. And there's so much stuff there, you know, deadfall brush, multiflora rose, just it's a mess back there. So, you know, you could hide back there and I'd never see you. But I heard this noise, and the dog, my big dog, who chases everything. You know, if a deer comes near, she's going to run it. You know, fox, raccoon, whatever it is, she's going to chase. She heads that direction, and I think I'm going to see some deer run by. And all of a sudden, she just freezes. She stops in her tracks, points that way, refuses to move. And then I hear huge footsteps, thump, 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 run up the mountainside. And it's steep. This thing covered 100 yards in no time. And it gets to this certain point when it's pretty far away, and it sounded like it took a one tree and slapped it against another, like it was saying, hey, do not follow me. And you can bet I didn't.
So do you think you're seeing the same one, or do you think you're seeing multiples?
I'm pretty sure I heard a family of them. I tried catching pictures on a game camera. Let me tell you, that is a futile thing to do. It doesn't matter where you put it, where you hide it, whether they see it, whether they hear it, whether they can see infrared, I don't know, but they will not go near a game camera. I tried that with apples, by the way. Set out apples in a bucket that I tied in a tree. They will come by and they will take those apples unless there's a game camera pointed at it. Move that game camera and it'll untie that knot, take down that bucket, eat 6 pounds of apples in a night, no problem. And they seem to really like Macintosh. At least mine do.
I mean, have you ever thought about like getting a ghillie suit, digging yourself in, and putting some Squatch scent on you? So
well, I can imagine that they can smell you. I don't think that wouldn't even work, probably.
But there is a.
I'm gonna wear your cologne.
That'll bring them in.
But the whole game camera thing, that is something you hear story after story after story. That people that they just. So I mean, that is not something that's just a one-time thing. That's a common occurrence.
Oh, everybody says that they can detect, they can see infrared, they know, they can smell,
something.
Yeah, I think their senses are much more acute than ours. I really think so.
Yeah,
all animals are. I mean, obviously they have to. They're predators. They have to hunt. They have to forage. Their eyesight, their sense of smell, their sense of hearing, everything is more heightened than ours. Mm-hmm. The only thing that's better is my third eye.
His third eye is better.
Where I can.
But you need to trim those eyelashes back.
I'm batting them at you right now, Jason.
So has your wife or your daughter experienced the Bigfoot?
My daughter caught a glimpse out the kitchen window, scared her to death. She acknowledges that they're there. She feels like they have come to her in her dreams. She does not want to see them person to person, though. It frightens her, and I don't blame her. Even when I'm just hearing the thing, it makes my heart pound like crazy. And yeah, I swear one night it gave me a dream, because it gave me memories in a dream, and there were people and things that weren't mine. It wasn't my memory. But it was like a memory of an event where it encountered a terrified human that wanted to shoot it.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I think, they know that we get scared. When we get scared, we tend to lash out. But buddy, I wouldn't dream of ever shooting one. I don't even want people to come by my place and try to see them. I'm hoping, to get an easy going sort of relationship with them, where at the very least I can see them from a distance and they can see me,
So you're looking like, you want to be like more like Jane Goodall, going out into the and trying to befriend the gorillas, and eventually where you can actually just assimilate into their.
Well, I'm already hairy and I smell kind of bad, so yeah, maybe.
Maybe you borrow Jason's cologne. Bring
him in.
So you're at peace though with these creatures now. So that leads me back to the original question. Do you think there's a correlation then between you seeing UFOs and having some experiences with extraterrestrials, and then on this property you now live, you're experiencing Bigfoot?
I wouldn't rule it out. I think maybe, I think I'm a paranormal magnet, and maybe that all does fit together, Earl asked me recently, he said, well, have you had Bigfoot around? And I said, no, I haven't seen any sign for a couple of weeks. And he laughed at me and he's like, most people wait their entire lives hoping to see Bigfoot, and you're upset because you haven't seen him in 2 weeks.
Well, I believe, and I'm sitting in a room with somebody who has experienced stuff their whole life and continues to experience. I think you coming on here and basically admitting, because we haven't even got into the ghost stuff. I think maybe we might save that for the Patreon page, some of your ghost stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's obvious that you for some reason are able to experience the UFOs,
Right.
experience the aliens, experience spirits, and then are open to big. I think there's probably way more people than you could even imagine listening to shows like ours, saying, "I totally get it," and people think I'm crazy.
Well, even from my own personal experiences, that I've had numerous paranormal experiences as a kid, even as an adult, seen a cryptid, and I'm reluctant to. And I just had an experience last night, and I'm reluctant to tell anybody because they're like, "Oh yeah, what's the odds that this guy's had this, and this?" You know what I mean? It's like people start talking. It's astronomically low. He's clearly embellishing this. He's trying to get attention. So I'm reluctant to even share some of the experiences I had because people say, "Well, it's just too much. It's just too much."
But here's the thing: is you're not alone, okay? Because we're talking to Brian right now. He's doing the same thing. The guests. I'm going to throw the time continuum on, but our show that'll be on. We're recording on a Wednesday. The show it's going to be on Friday. He's that gentleman has different kinds of experiences. From paranormal. Because we'll just call, my book, the ghost stuff is the paranormal. I don't think experiencing Bigfoot's all that paranormal. I think it's
no, I don't
I think it's just but it's all. But if you're open to one, I think it opens you up to more.
I was talking to a certain family member of mine and says, "There's no way Bigfoot's an alien." Said they'd wear clothes. If you're so sophisticated, that
maybe we're unsophisticated because we wear coats. Look at the French.
Here's one of the
French
things
would go around naked if they
it's
could.
the king's new clothes.
Yeah.
Here's one of the things I was wanting to say about that was that
and Jason is wearing clothes.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not the Sasquatch. Maybe Jerry is.
Only for the podcast. He's wearing clothes.
But yeah, I think that that people are starting in this industry, that there's so many researchers out there now. People are starting to understand that it might run in families, just having this intuitive nature, or it's something about maybe your vibrational quality or something. But multiple people have different types of sightings. Like one person that may have seen a Bigfoot may have also had some UFO experience, or they may have had a ghost experience,
or it's just West Virginia.
Well, no, I'm just saying.
I think it's just West Virginia.
People used to think that it's a once in a lifetime thing. Yeah. But think about it, even with the alien abduction things, they used to think, oh, it's once in a lifetime thing, and then now the whole industry is leaning towards believing that it travels in families. I mean, you may have had an abduction multiple times, or somebody else in your family may have had an abduction.
Well, but he's got the trifecta. The trifecta.
That is awesome.
Alien,
he's a researcher's dream.
Ghosts, cryptids.
Yep.
I mean, that is the trifecta. I'm not really sure that there's.
That's a researcher's dream.
I mean, unless we're gonna call demonology its own branch of the paranormal. I don't know. He's got all three covered. But the thing about it is, I'm glad Brian's telling these stories because, I mean, we know there are other people out there. I was just watching Travel Channel. I don't know if it was Monsters and Mystery or whatever. Sometimes they retool those names. It's the same show. But they're talking about a guy, and he'd had experience 30 years ago. And I says, well, I just didn't want to tell anybody because I was scared to be ridiculed. Like, how many times?
Exactly.
How many times have we heard that? And
ton.
And like with me, and like I don't want to share certain experiences. I'm like, look, people are going to think I'm just making this up because it's too much. It's just too many experiences. That can't be real.
Yeah, so imagine the person on the outside looking at the person talking about it saying, well, that's too much. Well, imagine what the person who's experiencing this is thinking. Yeah, it's definitely too much because every time I turn around, something's going on.
Well, that's why I say, I've said this time and time again. That's why we started the From the Shadows podcast. We are a platform so that people can relay their stories and their experiences that they've had, and not have to worry about being ridiculed. Have people.
And that's totally why I'm here.
Absolutely.
That is why I'm here.
Appreciate you being here. Yes.
It's kind of cathartic to get to just lay all of it out.
Yep.
Well, and then you get to a point when you tell your story enough times, you get to the point where you don't care who hears it, because you're like, look, if you don't believe me, you don't believe me. That's fine.
There's people out there that conglomerate in a place like on our forums that we have, also on the After the Shadows page, which is our Facebook group, where it's not a judgmental thing. We understand. We realize that
feels like Jason's
questions,
doing a commercial for the podcast.
There's questions out there that need to be answered. And by more people we can get to speak on their experiences, the closer we come to maybe obtaining some of these answers.
The odd thing is, the more we learn, the more questions we have.
I don't know.
Like what's the name of that cologne that I wear?
Sex Panther.
So Brian, what as we kind of close this episode out, what is it that somebody listening to this, that maybe is struggling having these experiences? I mean, what would you tell them as an experiencer about the cathartic feeling that you have about talking about it?
I think that talking about it is the best thing you can do if you can find a safe place like your show, where you can just lay it all out and say, this is what I've lived through, this is what's happened. Because there are other people, like you said, we're out here. We want to hear from you, because we all want validation that we've had these things happen, and we're not nuts. Well, we hope we're not. The trouble with being nuts is you're the last person that'll ever know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we tell you, don't worry.
Look, as being the last sane man in this room make me crazy.
No, we encourage people to come out and tell us their story, and the more people we get to do that, the closer we're going to come to finding these answers.
So what do you hope then? What do you hope happens with your experiences with Bigfoot and seeing UFOs? I mean, do you hope it keeps going and you learn more, or at some point are you going to be happy if it just never happens again?
Oh, I'd be unhappy if it stopped.
Well, I think he already basically said he wants to be able to form some sort of sort of understanding with Bigfoot, that he could sit and observe and watch them, and eventually he can see their children playing, and he can observe them from
see their
No, it's like chimps.
Like I'm imagining the soundtrack right now to that experience.
Someday I'm going to shoot the documentary about him and how he immersed himself in the Sasquatch culture, and then eventually, he left his family for one, and there's a very
stay tuned to this Temple Road production.
It's a romantic comedy.
Oh God.
If an alien decides to land in the yard and wants to come out and have a chat and bring Bigfoot along, I would love to have some answers.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really my whole life. Because of these experiences, all I've done is look for answers. And I've got a head full of theories and ideas and podcasts and shows and books and people. And I've changed my mind more times than I can count about what I think they are, from when I thought Bigfoot was just an ape to Bigfoot is definitely more than an ape. Do I know what he is exactly? No. But I really would like to know.
But you definitely know that there's an intelligence out there beyond what you have in your ape or chimpanzee kind of a primate.
So Brian has drawn the line in the sand. He's officially in that camp.
Yes, he is.
We keep a running tally of which camp, and it's a very vicious rivalry between people who think they're just biological creature versus having some sort of
supernatural. It is similar to, and this only the Ohio people and surround. Well, it's similar to being on the Gemini and being in the blue car and the red car, and who's going to
Cedar Point.
At Cedar Point,
you got to let people know. Remember, we got listeners all over the world that don't even know about
I'm not
Cedar
doing
Point.
an advertisement for Cedar Point. They never did.
They never did anything for the From Channel podcast.
They barely made something that I can fit in ananymore.
I was thinking more of like either you're a Reds fan or an Indians fan. Oh, if you're a baseball fan, Braves. Yeah.
Listen, West Virginia doesn't have baseball. They don't like to let people have bats. So
Boy ruined that.
Well, look, so the last question I'm going to have for you, and we'll let you go, is what is more? I don't want to say terrifying because I think you've kind of come to grips with.
I don't think you're scared at all.
But what is more startling? The seeing a UFO or the having a dream encounter of maybe with some aliens, seeing the Bigfoot and the come up to the backyard knowing it's out there just beyond in the shadows, or experiencing a ghost.
I think when things mess with your head, when they get in your head, when they talk to you or try to get into your dreams, that's kind of a violation. That feels like a violation. It's a personal space thing. It's like whoa, let's use mouths, please. Let's not do this.
That's a great answer.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have no control over that.
I tell you, they get in Jason's mind, they're gonna have to take a nice warm shower with soap when they're done. That is one
I apologize for that comment, Brian.
They don't get in his mind. They've been there.
Uncalled for.
No.
You guys, you should approach Dr. Squatch and see if they want to become a sponsor.
Right.
After this show, I think the answer is no. I think well, hey, Brian, we appreciate you coming on. You feeling like we were the people that you wanted to come tell your stories.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Because I just knew the tip of the iceberg. I had no idea of all the times that you have been privy to seeing UFOs. I mean, that to me that is the scariest part, because we have really no idea what that is. Ghosts, you can kind of wrap your head around. Even like something running out in the woods, peeking. But man, something from another planet or an intelligent life, even from this planet that's not us, that kind of freaks me out. So
we need to learn. I love it.
Listen, if we have that access to that technology, why can't I drive past the dump out here on Old Route 30 and my cell phone not go out? I mean, come on. Let's. They're
not sharing that.
Let's step it up a little bit. Jeez. But we definitely appreciate you coming on and sharing with everybody. I'm sure our listeners have loved hearing your experiences, and stay safe. Stay safe. Don't go chasing.
Hey, listen, if you disappear, we're going to write this up as alien abduction. I don't think the Sasquatch wants you. He could have already had you. Yeah. So I'm going to write this up, alien abduction.
Feel free to recommend some other people if they go to talk to you about this, and let them know. Get in contact with us, and we'll get them on the air. And
if they can handle it,
or if you want to talk to Brian, get a hold of us. Yes. And if Brian's okay with it, we'll get somebody in touch that just wants to maybe share their experiences with somebody else that
don't forget
that had experiences as well, for sure.
Yeah, don't forget emails, questions at fromtheshadows.podcast@gmail.
And Gmail.
Yes, and we love to talk. I love to talk to people, because especially people all over the world, their experiences, share my experiences, stuff like that. It's a super cool thing to do.
And to the rest of our new audience out there and existing people, share episodes with your friends. Turn other people on to the program.
Jason is just a commercial for our podcast.
More importantly, join After the Shadows, which is our Facebook group, because that's a good way to speak with other people that are of like mind, like us.
Yeah.
And if you share at least 10 times, Jason will send you his own personal scent.
Wow.
Okay. I'm going to wrap up this episode, because this is just going so far off the rails.
Thank you, Brian. We appreciate it.
So Brian, thank you so much, and we'll get together and we'll talk some of your ghost stories. We'll do that for another episode. So, but we appreciate you. Thank you so much. Keep experiencing, and
be safe out there.
Yeah, be safe.
You bet.
Take care, all.
All
right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.